Welcome back to the channel USA Coins 69. Listen closely, because what I'm about to reveal may completely change the way you look at your pocket change forever. Somewhere in the United States, right now, a forgotten 5-cent coin from 1972 could be sitting inside a jar, a drawer, or a dusty old box, and it might be worth far more than just 5 cents. This is the hidden world of the 1972 Jefferson Nickel, a coin with secrets, errors, and values that most collectors never even notice until it's too late. The 1972 Jefferson Nickel may look like an ordinary 5-cent piece, but beneath its simple design lies a story of American history, mint struggles, and collector treasures waiting to be uncovered. The coin features the classic portrait of Thomas Jefferson designed by Felix Schlag, an artist whose design has become a cornerstone of American coinage for over 8 decades. His sharp profile, the crisp lettering, and the carefully sculpted details of his coat and facial features make the 1972 nickel an important piece in the evolution of American numismatics. When you flip the coin over, Monticello, Jefferson's historic Virginia home, dominates the reverse with strong architectural lines and precise engraving that became a milestone in mid-20th century U.S. mint artistry. But what many people never realize is that coins from the early 1970s often suffered from weak strikes, worn dies, and mint production issues that accidentally produced some of the most collectible variations in the Jefferson Nickel series. These small imperfections and inconsistencies are exactly why certain 1972 nickels are considered rare and valuable today. Now let's talk mint marks, one of the most important factors when judging rarity and price. The 1972 Jefferson Nickel was produced at 3 locations: Philadelphia with no mint mark, Denver with the letter D, and San Francisco with the letter S. Each mint produced vastly different quantities, and this drastically affects collector demand. With Philadelphia striking hundreds of millions of examples, the no mint mark nickel is common in circulation, but not when it comes to high-grade, fully struck, brilliant uncirculated pieces, which are dramatically harder to find. The Denver Mint produced its own 1972 D Jefferson Nickel, and while it also had huge production numbers, the defining characteristic of many coins from this facility is uneven strikes and weak hair detail on Jefferson's portrait. Collectors today aggressively search for sharp strikes with crisp Monticello steps, something Denver Mint coins notoriously struggled to achieve in 1972. That's why full steps Denver nickels command huge premiums in today's market. Then we come to the San Francisco Mint, where 1972's nickels were struck as proofs for collectors. These proof coins, made using polished dies and specially prepared planchets, showcase mirror-like fields, frosted devices, and immaculate details that make them the highest quality examples of the year. But not all proof nickels were struck perfectly, and some rare pieces show cameo or deep cameo contrasts that push their value significantly higher than regular proof strikes. Errors from 1972 Jefferson nickels bring excitement to every collector hoping to find a hidden treasure in their change. Some of the most valuable errors include off-center strikes, double denomination errors where a Jefferson nickel was accidentally struck on a previously formed coin blank, clipped planchets creating crescent-shaped cuts, and dramatic die cracks that show raised lines across the coin surface. But the most desirable collectible error is the full steps designation, given only to coins with perfectly defined, uninterrupted steps on Monticello's entrance. Full steps examples are incredibly rare for 1972 because the mint's dies were often worn down before striking, leaving most coins with mushy or incomplete step details. This is why collectors pay big premiums for 1972 Jefferson nickels that show 5 or 6 full, sharply defined steps, especially from the Denver Mint. These small architectural lines might seem insignificant, but to expert numismatists, they represent the pinnacle of die quality, strike precision, and preservation. Collectors today constantly search through old jars, bank rolls, and inherited collections hoping to uncover a high-grade, full steps 1972 nickel that survived more than 5 decades without damage. Circulation wear, scratches, bag marks, and weak strikes eliminate thousands of coins from consideration, making untouched, perfectly preserved examples a true rarity. That's why high MS-grade nickels from 1972, especially with full steps, regularly surprise auction houses and private collectors with strong, competitive bidding. now let's take a deeper look at what drives the value of 1972 Jefferson Nickels today. Condition is king, and any example graded MS66 or higher automatically attracts attention from serious collectors. Proof coins with deep cameo surfaces also achieve standout prices, especially when certified by PCGS or NGC. But the ultimate prize remains an MS67 full steps nickel, an incredibly rare combination of strike, preservation, and I appeal that only a tiny fraction of 1,972 coins possess. Collectors also love varieties, and 1972 offers several notable die variations including repunched mint marks, rotated dies, and subtle double dies on both obverse and reverse. While not all doubling is dramatic, some examples show clear doubling on Monticello's pillars or on the lettering surrounding Jefferson's portrait. Knowledgeable collectors are constantly searching for these small but valuable details, knowing that rare varieties can transform an ordinary nickel into a valuable specimen. And now comes the moment every coin collector waits for, the real market numbers that prove just how valuable the 1972 Jefferson Nickel can truly be. A stunning 1972 D Jefferson Nickel graded MS67 full steps sold for over $14,000 at auction, making it one of the most expensive examples from the entire early 1970s nickel series. Meanwhile, Proof 1972's deep cameo nickels in PR70 have sold for more than $1,800, and even Philadelphia nickels with full steps in high MS grades have crossed the $3,000 mark. These aren't estimates, these are verified prices paid by collectors who understand the rarity and beauty of these coins, so if you're watching this video right now, remember this: a simple coin from 1972, something millions of Americans once carried in their pockets, could be hiding extraordinary value. Whether it's a rare mint state example, a full steps masterpiece, a dramatic mint error, or a top-graded proof, your next great treasure might already be in your home, waiting patiently for the right collector to discover it. Keep searching, stay curious, and never underestimate the power of rare U.S. coins, especially the mysterious, surprising, and potentially valuable 1972 Jefferson Nickel. Have you ever held a coin so ordinary, so simple, so familiar, that you never questioned its true story, only to discover years later that it could secretly be worth far more than anyone around you ever imagined? Today, we are diving into one of the most misunderstood and overlooked treasures in American pocket change, the 1985 Jefferson Nickel, a coin millions passed through their hands without ever realizing the hidden mysteries waiting beneath its surface. Prepare yourself, because the value of this nickel goes far beyond 5 cents, and the deeper we go into its history, the more thrilling the journey becomes. To understand the power of the 1985 Jefferson Nickel, we must first travel back into the origins of America's iconic 5-cent design that began in 1938, featuring President Thomas Jefferson in his majestic home Monticello. Even decades after its creation, the design still carried the brilliance of sculptor Felix Schlag's original artistic genius, and by the mid-1980s, it had become one of the longest-running designs in U.S. coinage history. The year 1985 continued this tradition, producing millions of nickels across key U.S. mints, yet not all of them were created equal. The 1985 Jefferson Nickel was struck at two main mint locations, Philadelphia and Denver. The Philadelphia mint coins carry no mint mark, while the Denver mint proudly displays the D mint mark on the right side of Jefferson's portrait just above the date. Although both mints produced large quantities, subtle differences in strike quality and die longevity created rare varieties that collectors still chase passionately today. At first glance, the 1985 nickel looks like any other coin from the 1980s, simple, smooth, and heavily circulated, but collectors know there is far more hiding beneath that standard appearance. The 1985 nickels were struck during a period when mint equipment was aging, dies were being overused, and quality control wasn't flawless, which gave rise to an entire category of collectible errors that turn an everyday nickel into a valuable numismatic prize. Among the most famous varieties, the 1985 off-center strike nickels are especially desirable, where the design shifts dramatically to one side, sometimes missing up to 60% of the design and creating a striking, eye-catching minting mistake. These errors can range in value from modest premiums to impressive collector prices depending on how far off-center the strike occurred and whether the date remains completely visible. Another sought-after rarity is the 1985 double die, where the lettering on Jefferson's portrait or the details on Monticello show faint but detectable doubling. While not every doubling is valuable, strong Class II and Class IV double dies command impressive attention among error collectors, especially when the word Liberty or the date exhibits clean, noticeable splits in the lettering. Younger collectors often overlook the subtle but fascinating die cracks and cuds that formed on many 1985 nickels due to overworked dies. These breaks in the die cause raised, jagged metal lines across Jefferson's face or Monticello's architecture, creating unique one-of-a-kind pieces that collectors love because no two look exactly the same. In some cases, full cuds, where a piece of the die actually breaks away, result in dramatic missing design areas that significantly raise collector demand, but one of the most thrilling discoveries in the 1985 nickel series comes from full steps Monticello strikes, especially from the Denver Mint. Full steps, a specialized grading term used by experts and serious collectors, refers to the sharp, complete visibility of all 6 steps on Monticello on the reverse side. Achieving a perfect full-step strike in the 1980s was extremely difficult due to worn dies and production speeds, which makes a 1985 nickel with full, uninterrupted steps incredibly desirable and surprisingly rare. Collectors also pay close attention to the overall strike sharpness of the 1985 nickels because the mint was using older dies, which often resulted in soft details, especially around Jefferson's cheekbone, hair, and collar. A sharply struck example stands out dramatically from the majority of weakly struck coins, instantly raising its desirability and market value. Now let's talk survival rates, because despite the huge mintage numbers, only a tiny percentage of 1,985 nickels survived in high-end collector grades. Most entered circulation immediately and endured decades of wear, scratches, nicks, and dulling, making mint state survivors far rarer than people realize. In fact, top-graded examples certified by PCGS or NGC, especially those with full steps designation, can be extremely valuable to advanced collectors who specialize in Jefferson Nickels. Even more exciting is the strong collector demand tied to the 1985 D full steps nickel. Denver produced better strikes overall than Philadelphia in the early 1980s, but true full-step examples that grade MS66 and above remain extremely scarce. These high-grade coins can spark competitive bidding between collectors, especially those building registry sets that require the highest-graded examples known. And now, it's time for the part every viewer has been waiting for, the real market values that have shocked collectors and proven just how important condition, rarity, and strike quality truly are. A 1985 Jefferson nickel in regular circulated condition is usually worth just face value, but certified high-end examples tell a very different story. The most valuable 1985 nickel ever recorded is a stunning 1985 D-graded MS67 full steps, which achieved an incredible auction price of over $3,000, shocking collectors with its rarity and superb strike quality. Meanwhile, a Philadelphia 1985 nickel-graded MS66 full steps reached nearly $1,000 at auction, proving that even a coin from the 1980s can command serious money when preserved with exceptional detail and perfection. So as we reach the final moments of this journey, remember this: the 1985 Jefferson Nickel is far more than an everyday piece of pocket change. It's a coin deeply connected to America's numismatic story, filled with hidden errors, rare high-grade survivors, and full steps varieties that almost no one expected to find in a modern coinage year. Whether you are a seasoned collector or someone who simply checks their pocket change, the 1985 Jefferson Nickel reminds us that true treasure often hides in plain sight, waiting for the right pair of eyes to see its value. Today, we journey deep into the overlooked world of the 1987 Jefferson Nickel, a coin so ordinary, so familiar, and yet so full of unexplored mystery that collectors everywhere are only now beginning to uncover its hidden treasures. If you think a 1987 nickel is just another 5-cent coin, prepare yourself, because this episode is about to change everything you thought you knew about modern American coinage. The 1987 Jefferson Nickel represents a fascinating period in U.S. mint history, a time when the mint was modernizing operations and increasing production, yet still facing challenges with worn dies, varying strike qualities, and rising public demand for circulating coinage. This made the 1987 series a unique blend of high mintage numbers mixed with surprising scarcity in the highest collector grades, especially when you begin diving into the full steps category that advanced collectors obsess over. Struck at two primary locations, Philadelphia and Denver, the 1987 nickel came in two important mint mark varieties, the no mint mark Philadelphia nickel, and the 1987 D from the Denver Mint. Each mint had its own striking characteristics, but both dealt with die fatigue and overuse, which contributed to several of the interesting varieties, errors, and strike anomalies that make the 1987 nickel one of the more exciting modern issues for collectors to study. The design itself, created by the legendary sculptor Felix Schlag, remained unchanged from the original 1938 introduction, featuring Jefferson's left-facing portrait on the obverse and the iconic Monticello building on the reverse. But in 1987, many of these nickels show subtle differences in strike pressure, rim detail, and Monticello clarity, depending on which die pair was used and how long the dies had been in service. This is why experienced collectors will examine the steps of Monticello, Jefferson's hair detail, and rim definition with intense scrutiny when determining whether a 1987 nickel qualifies as a high-grade collectible. While millions of these coins were produced, the real story lies not in the overall mintage but in the survival rate of sharply struck mint state examples. The mint's rapid production pace in 1987 created softer strike qualities on many coins, making the fully detailed varieties, especially those with full steps, significantly rarer than most people realize. Coins with strong strikes, full rims, sharp lettering, and crisp architectural detail stand out dramatically from the average circulated examples that still sit unnoticed in jars, drawers, and soda machines across the country. Now, let's dive into the world of 1987 nickel errors, where things get truly exciting. Off-center strikes are among the most dramatic, where the design shifted during minting and left part of the coin blank or heavily misaligned. Errors showing 10 to 40% off-center, especially with the date still visible, are highly collectible and have been known to bring impressive premiums from error specialists. Another prized category involves double dies, where the lettering, date, or Monticello details appear slightly doubled due to die misalignment or mechanical failure during preparation. Although strong double dies for the 1987 series are less common than in earlier decades, collectors closely examine Liberty, the mint mark region, and the reverse steps for hints of doubling that can transform an ordinary coin into an exciting and valuable find. Die cracks and cuds are also found on certain 1987 nickels, adding unexpected charm and rarity to individual specimens. These occur when sections of the working die begin to crack from fatigue, leaving raised lines across Jefferson's portrait or the Monticello architecture. In more dramatic cases, full cuds, where a piece of the die breaks off entirely, create thick, raised blobs on the rim or fields that make each cud-bearing coin a unique, one-of-a-kind collectible that error enthusiasts deeply appreciate. But perhaps the most coveted form of 1987 nickel rarity is the full steps designation, a grading term reserved for coins with perfectly struck, uninterrupted steps on the Monticello reverse. Because worn dies and fast production led to soft details, especially between the third and sixth steps, full steps examples from 1987 are incredibly hard to find in high mint state grades. A true full steps 1987 nickel instantly catches the attention of registry collectors who compete fiercely for the finest known examples. The Denver Mint nickel, the 1987 D, is especially noteworthy, because while Denver generally produced stronger strikes, only a tiny fraction of its coins survived with flawless full steps detail. These high-grade survivors form the elite category of the 1987 series, and collectors have paid serious premiums at auction to secure the finest known specimens. Meanwhile, the Philadelphia Mint nickels, although plentiful, show even lower survival rates in upper mint state levels due to weaker strike quality and faster die deterioration. So how much can the rarest 1987 Jefferson Nickels actually sell for? Believe it or not, the highest recorded price for a 1987 D full steps nickel reached over $1,400 at auction for a stunning MS-67 example certified by a major grading service. Philadelphia Mint examples in MS-66 full steps have sold for over $700, while dramatic off-center errors and strong double dies can bring anywhere from $75 to several $100 depending on severity, condition, and visual appeal. These prices may shock many collectors who once believed coins from the 1980s held no serious value, but the numbers tell a very different story, and now, as we reach the final moments of this journey, remember this: the 1987 Jefferson Nickel is far more than a common 5-cent coin lost in circulation. It is a piece of American history, a reflection of changing mint technology, and a treasure trove of hidden rarities waiting to be discovered by those with knowledge sharp enough to recognize them. Whether it's a high-grade full steps example, a dramatic minting error, or a perfectly preserved Denver strike, the 1987 nickel reminds us that even modern coins can carry extraordinary value when examined by the eyes of a true collector. Today, we journey into the mysterious and fascinating world of the 1973 Jefferson Nickel, a coin millions of Americans have touched, spent, saved, and forgotten, but one that carries secrets only true collectors know how to uncover. Stay with me, because the story behind the 1973 nickel is deeper, richer, and more valuable than you've ever been told. The year 1973 stands as a powerful moment in U.S. mint history, marking a period of transition, modernization, and shifting production quality across the nation's coins. The Jefferson Nickel, originally designed by Felix Schlag in 1938, continued its long-running legacy with the same portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and the iconic Monticello building on the reverse. But the nickels minted in 1973 came with their own unique characteristics, differences in die wear, striking pressure, and quality control that created a landscape of collectible varieties still studied by serious numismatists today. Two primary mints produced the 1973 nickel: the Philadelphia Mint, which struck coins with no mint mark, and the Denver Mint, which released the 1973 D nickel featuring the D mint mark to the right of Jefferson's portrait. These two mints produced hundreds of millions of coins, but the quality between them varied significantly, setting the stage for some unexpected rarities that today command high interest in the collector community. The Philadelphia Mint in 1973 was known for weaker strikes, especially on the reverse steps of Monticello. Many coins show worn steps, mushy facial features, and soft lettering caused by overused dies and rapid production schedules. In contrast, Denver typically produced stronger, sharper strikes, but even D-mint coins of 1973 show noticeable inconsistencies, making the search for high-quality examples a challenging but rewarding pursuit for collectors across the United States. Collectors today focus heavily on the full steps designation when searching for premium quality 1973 nickels. The steps on Monticello must be clear, distinct, and uninterrupted to achieve this elite grading abbreviation, and because die deterioration was common in 1973, full steps examples remain incredibly scarce. In fact, due to weak pressure and aging dies, 1,973 full steps nickels from both Philadelphia and Denver are among the hardest modern-era Jefferson nickels to locate in pristine mint state condition, but the excitement does not stop at strike quality. The 1973 Jefferson Nickel is also known for several fascinating and collectible mint errors. Off-center strikes, where the design is shifted far from the center, create dramatic and valuable error pieces that collectors eagerly pursue. The more off-center the strike and the more complete the date remains, the higher the value rises, making certain 1973 off-center errors worth far more than the 5-cent face value most people assume. Another intriguing error category for the 1973 nickel is the double die variety. Doubling may appear on the date, the word Liberty, Jefferson's I, or the Monticello lettering on the reverse. Strong double dies from the early 1970s are some of the most sought-after varieties in Jefferson nickel collecting, and any bold doubling from 1973 instantly turns a common coin into a highly desirable rarity among specialists. Collectors also look closely for die cracks, die breaks, and full cuds, flaws formed when a working die deteriorates or breaks entirely during production. These mint-created anomalies produce raised lines or missing sections on the coin surface, giving each error a unique, one-of-a-kind appearance that makes it a fascinating addition to any advanced Jefferson nickel collection. Dramatic cuds along the rim or across Monticello are especially valuable because they offer unmistakable visual impact and undeniable mint origin. Survival rates for high-grade 1973 nickels are far lower than many collectors realize. The vast majority of these coins entered circulation immediately and accumulated decades of wear, scratches, and surface damage. Finding a 1973 nickel in immaculate mint state condition, especially one with crisp steps, full luster, and clean surfaces, is a challenge that continues to grow more difficult with each passing year. This scarcity in top grades is exactly why registry collectors and competitive bidders often pay impressive premiums for exceptional survivors. Even uncirculated rolls of 1973 nickels, once plentiful in the 1970s and 1980s, have now nearly disappeared from the marketplace. As these rolls vanished, the supply of untouched, high-grade examples dropped dramatically, driving collector demand even higher today. When combined with the rarity of full steps varieties and the appeal of unique mint errors, the 1973 nickel has become a surprisingly exciting modern coin that continues attracting serious attention. Now it's time for the moment everyone has been waiting for, the real, verified highest market prices and auction results that prove just how valuable the rarest 1973 Jefferson Nickels can be. The most valuable 1973 D full steps nickel ever sold at auction reached an astonishing over $3,000 for a flawless PCGS graded MS67 full steps example. Meanwhile, the Philadelphia Mint's 1973 full steps nickel has reached nearly $2,000 in MS66 full steps, making it one of the toughest modern full steps nickels in the entire Jefferson series. Additionally, off-center strikes, dramatic cuds, and bold double dies from 1973 have sold for $100 to more than $400 depending on severity and condition. As we reach the final chapter of this exploration, remember that the 1973 Jefferson Nickel is much more than a simple piece of 1970s pocket change. It is a coin filled with historical character, minting complexity, surprising rarity, and incredible potential value for collectors who know what to look for. Whether you discover a sharp full steps Denver strike, a Philadelphia nickel with exceptional luster, or a dramatic mint error untouched since the day it left the mint, the 1973 nickel reminds us that true treasure often appears in the most unexpected places, even in the form of a 5-cent coin from 50 years ago.